Before Wernher von Braun brought the first wave of rocket-crazed Germans to Huntsville, Alabama, and endowed it with the current title Rocket City, we were known as Cave City. Any North Alabama or Southern Tennessee native probably knows the area is littered with sinkholes and caverns. This is because the Tennessee Valley hosts a huge amount of limestone, and limestone erosion makes for good caves. There's more than 240 caves just within the city limits in Redstone Arsenal, and that's just in Madison County. Thousands more are probably scattered across the surrounding counties. But this video is just going to be about one of those caves. John Hunt, as in Huntsville, discovered the Big Spring in 1805. Since it flows around 1,000 gallons per minute, it rapidly became a focal point for the area's population. For well over a century, almost everyone in the area was getting their water from it. Today there's buildings on top of the spring, and that means there's like sewage lines and all kinds of other nasty stuff flowing into the water, so this might go without saying, but don't drink it. Naturally, the city square ended up being developed close to the water source, and in 1916, while the city was growing more dependent on the spring for water, the cave's existence was officially documented. In the 1930s, a rough survey was done, and for a long time the cave's existence just wasn't that big a deal. You might wonder why it was being surveyed if it wasn't that interesting. Well, good question. It wasn't so much about the cave as it was the water coming from it. Maple Hill Cemetery, which is about a mile away from the square, started getting attention thanks to a yellow fever outbreak. At the time, no one really understood how the virus was spreading, so locals began to freak out about the possibility that infected bodies were somehow leaking into, you guessed it, their main water supply. So the 1930 survey was really just to investigate whether or not the fluids from the cemetery could somehow mix with the Big Spring. Fortunately, we pretty soon learned the virus is actually transmitted through mosquito bites, and the whole thing just kind of blew over. During that survey, it was realized that the cave ran directly under the courthouse, not the thing that's there now. There was an older courthouse, and apparently someone started a rumor that it was expected to collapse down into the cave. Hundreds of people showed up one particular day to watch, and it just never happened. Anyway, fast forward 30 years, it's the 1960s and the square is starting to really develop. The city was contemplating how to erect the, quote, universally despised 8-story excuse for modern art. So they took an active interest in what was going to be the building's foundation. 6 surveyors spent roughly a month going in and out of the Big Spring Cave, this time mapping it for structural detail. The survey found the ground just wasn't real suitable for a courthouse of the scale being proposed, so engineers proposed a couple solutions. Set the heavier part of the structure to one side of the square instead of the middle, and then install 60 caissons. That's those big bedrock-rooted rebar-filled pillars of concrete you see being driven into the ground at construction sites. They also revealed the cave has some rather large rooms in it. They reportedly found one with a 50-foot ceiling located somewhere just beneath Jefferson Street. The distance between the roof of the room and the road above is reportedly as thin as 10 foot in some places. So the engineers came to the construction site, drove all those caissons into the ground and into the cave. Occasionally, the Huntsville Speleological Society has to take inspectors down there to go inspect the caissons. And this brings up what you might have already been wondering.
If I told you there's a cave underneath this courthouse, what would you say?
Okay, how do you get in?
Well, there's one accessible entrance, but there used to be 2. One is at the Big Spring Fountain. It's all covered up with concrete today, so there's really no way of getting in there. And the other is all the way over here on Green Street. This is the entrance used by the inspectors. While it's possible to go in and see the cave for yourself, I strongly advise against it for a few reasons. First, the people who have seen it say it's relatively boring and ugly as caves go. Second, the 60s survey report approver called it, quote, the most dangerous cave I've ever seen. And that guy had been in over 500 caves across the United States and Europe, so I would take his word for it. Third, and probably most important, since the cave runs directly under such a sensitive public structure, it's probably very much illegal. So I would just stay completely out of that thing unless you have authorization from the city. That's the lowdown on the Big Spring Cave. I hope you guys found some of that information as interesting as I did. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to see more content from this channel, be sure to click the subscribe button and tick the little bell right next to it. Leave a little comment if you feel so inclined, and thank you for watching.